Hey guys, Soundjack from Nerdy Geek Talk, the source for all your nerdy geeky needs, here with episode 2 of the Nerdy Geek Talk reviews. And today we are talking about the Studio Series Wave 1 Voyagers. And that will include the Thundercracker. I was going to say Target exclusive Thundercracker, but not necessarily in Target Toys R Us. Did I say Target exclusive? I
Yeah,
meant
you
Toys R
yeah
Us.
you said Target.
I guess I got work on the brain. I don't know. Anyway, Toys R Us exclusive, but it's an exclusive in a bunch of other places, so it's just an exclusive. But it will be counted towards this review as it is a Voyager released around the same time. And as you have already heard, I am joined today by Eric.
Hello, how you doing?
I am doing well, and how are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
That's good to hear. Unfortunately, that is it for us today.
We're tag
Uh,
teaming it.
Yeah, tag team. We got this. We got this. We do have everyone's numbers of how they rank each of the individual figures, and we will tell you that whole slew of numbers at the end. But let's start by talking about each of the figures individually. And we are going to go numerical order since these guys are handily numbered for us. Um, so, first off is Optimus Prime, number 5 in overall in the Studio Series line. He is from Revenge of the Fallen. He transforms into a Peterbilt 379 semi-truck. He comes with 2 Energon swords as his accessories, as well as the Forest Fight backdrop, and transforms in 35 steps. It's a lot of steps there, ain't it?
It is. I didn't. I He is a little bit more complex than the rest. I think. I didn't realize that till you gave the 35 steps. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think his transformation does have more to it than a lot of the other figures in the line so far. At least to me, it seemed like it.
Oh, I won't say the number right now, but he's definitely has a lot more than Starscreams,
Mm-hmm.
even. I know that the leaders have a bunch, but that's because they're leaders and they're bigger. But we'll talk about the leaders when we get to them. Well, let's just start off. Normally, I ask everyone that comes on the show to write a list of at least 4 characteristics, 2 positive or 2 negative. Eric, how about you start us off with the positives you have for the Optimus Prime?
Um,
The Optimus Prime. Wow. Anyway, go
I
ahead.
I think I would. So I definitely like his accessories, like the swords. It's good. The backdrop in particular, I do really. This is one of the ones where I really appreciate it. Not necessarily the picture itself. It's good, but I mean just the fact that this is one of the situations where I think that really helps the nostalgia for me. Like I think the backgrounds are a nice touch for all of them, and it still looks nice, whether it's a generic one like someone else will get to in this wave, or one that's very specific to like a particular scene that happens in the movies. And I think that Optimus Prime is one of the ones that evokes my feelings towards the scene in the movie the most, being the forest fight from Revenge of the Fallen, which is the definitely the high point of that entire movie by far. So I think that,
Absolutely.
yeah, not necessarily the picture itself, though it's good, but just its inclusion in general is a major plus for me. It definitely boosts the figure in my eyes. And then the other thing I'd have to say is that I'll give 2 more things in that I like. While this also will go into a negative, but it is also a pro. I like his scale. He scales nicely with the other deluxes from Wave 1, I think at least. I think that he scales quite nicely.
Yeah.
Um, but again, that'll feed into a negative later. And then the other pro is I do like his transformation. I don't know. It is a combination of 2 figures we seem to have gotten before, as in it shares a lot of aspects of Evasion Mode Prime for its lower part, the lower part of the robot mode, whereas the upper part of the robot mode seems to be a lot of first edition Prime, Optimus Prime
Mhm.
transformation, and neither of those are bad things whatsoever. So
No.
I very much
Uh,
like it.
I'd already looked through my notes and I wrote this down for a later figure, but like borrowing some a transformation bits of a transformation from another toy because it works is certainly not a bad thing. I don't own either of those figures you were talking about, Eric, but I wasn't aware of that. But those bits of the transformation are very nice. It's very neat how the legs work, to be honest, as well as how interestingly the arms fold up. It's a little bit of a little bit of like a Rubik's cubing the arms in a little bit, I think, because you just got to flip the panels around a couple of times to get the arms oriented just the right way. And it is a little loose until you lock everything together, but once you get everything together, it's a nice, solid figure, vehicle mode, I should say, and it's quite nice. It's quite good. For the transformation for me, those what are those supposed to be? Fuel tanks on the side?
Yes.
They're not the most secure thing. So like the back four wheels are like a bit that section back there is a little loose. So if like I'm moving it around a little too much, it may wiggle a bit. Mm-hmm. That's not the most secure connection out of anything in terms of like vehicle mode tabbing. That's the one thing I would have preferred so you get a better connection. But overall, it's quite solid. Transformation, and the transformation was none of my positives or negatives, and I'll just go ahead with my positives now. You did take my comment about how nice the blades are. They're just so nice.
I really do love them.
They're nice. The clear plastic's really great. The paint is nice. But the other positive I have for Prime is just how posable he is for a Transformers figure. He's got such a range of movement. I don't have anything else in my collection that can move quite the same way as Prime can in a lot of circumstances. The closest thing I own is the Gypsy Avenger figure from the Tamashii Nations line.
Pacific Rim Uprising. Yeah. You think that Optimus is more posable than that?
Not more posable, but close.
Okay, that I was just making sure. Just the way you said it, I was like,
it's definitely not definitely not more posable. But like just how far like his knee bends and his range on his arms.
He has really good range.
A lot of that reminds me of that, but that might also be because I got them around the same time. The only issue I have is the head is annoying to move around just because the chin gets in the way of like the truck top on the side. Just a very minor annoyance. Very minor annoyance. But it's something I'd figure I'd bring up. It's not perfect, but it is quite nice. No, I'll get started on the negatives. Personally, for me, the color, despite this being like a very movie accurate line, I find the colors on this to be quite off from his on-screen appearance. Mostly with the gray being very dark and not that metallic, to me at least. You're more familiar with the movie, so for sure. But to me, it definitely doesn't seem like the movies aren't the brightest coloring of the characters, but it does feel like Prime's a fair bit darker in some of his colors. He should be mostly the grays and the red. I believe are a bit darker than they really should be.
And the red's a little more like the red isn't very metallic in the movie in his robot mode. It's like a flat red, whereas I find a lot of it to look like, especially on the chest, it like I don't know if it's necessarily metallic, but the toy, there's something about it that shines more than in a different way, I guess, than the actual on-screen appearance, at least to me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the big thing. Like out of everything, that's an odd thing to get wrong. Since you can just look at the screen captures in the movie stills and all of that, you got all of this promo material, and the colors are off, which is very strange. The other thing that I'd say is a negative a bit is how small the truck mode feels. I mean, it's certainly accurate with giving everyone an accurate robot mode height. The vehicle mode height may be a little questionable. Maybe not necessarily right now, but from the pictures I've seen of Ironhide that we'll be talking about eventually, uh, scale's certainly off there. Um, but over for vehicle mode, but overall, it does feel like a small truck mode, and that just maybe more because the first movie Prime I owned was the leader class from the first movie, who was just a huge box, pretty much.
No, I think that literally, like from an objective standpoint, it is a very small Optimus Prime figure in
Okay.
terms of like, I mean, like obviously it's not a deluxe. Like there has been a deluxe of this version of Optimus Prime from the movies, but like in terms of a Voyager Prime, like even if you like the scale and everything, just compared to past Optimus Prime toys of this size, it's a very small truck for sure.
Mm, yeah, which is odd for sure because it's supposedly in scale, and the movie heights are supposedly in scale with their vehicle modes. So,
Hmm.
uh, don't know what's going on there to an extent. I know that's how they designed and that's what happened, but it's still strange.
Definitely.
Um, but what are your negatives?
You
Did
mainly,
I
yeah,
I say
you basically just took mine. It is small overall, but again, it's somewhat of a negative, but also I kind of don't want to put that against it because it is in scale, and out of the two things, I do think that I would like scale. Like having the movie cast in scale is a little more important to me than having them all be some of them be bigger and some of them be smaller than they should be and such. So,
Mhm.
you know, it's a trade. Uh I think it's worth it, but again, it is just on his own. He seems small. In a group, I like him. Although vehicle mode again is a little weird, but mainly most of the time it's robot mode that we all care about.
Yeah,
Even because I was gonna say, like, even if you like to transform your toys and all that, it's very rare that people display them in vehicle mode. It's
because that
if
just takes up so much more shelf space.
yeah, so it's gonna be the robot mode that you display it in most of the time. So it's forgivable, especially next to the rest of them.
Yeah,
Um, I do wish that he had a gun. That's another negative I'll give to him. Only
yeah.
because he does, use he uses guns. He doesn't necessarily in that scene, but so one thing I will say is that, and this is based off of, I wouldn't have complained about this before, but now seeing all the accessories that the Volkswagen Bumblebee figure in Studio Series will come with, he comes
Mm.
with an alternate head and an alternate forearm gun and an alternate forearm uh, wrist
Blade.
blade. So that's
Yeah.
three accessories, which again they're all smaller because he's a deluxe, but it's a smaller price point as well. So I feel like a third accessory, it couldn't have been too hard to work in a gun, but
I,
it is what it is.
for the Voyagers, I think I mean, you are a wanting to be a toy designer, so you know better about parts layouts and parts counts and whatnot. But considering his complexity and considering the relative scale, I think all of the Voyagers so far have been good about making the amount worth it for their price point.
Hmm.
Because Megatron is just a huge thing, but comes with no accessories. Brawl's Where's my Prime, honestly? Oh, yeah, I've had him in a kneeling pose on my shelf, so I'm pretty sure he's about around the same height as Brawl. And Brawl comes with two weapon accessories, technically three if you count the very tiny minigun.
But they
Um,
each have their own. They are like they have multiple parts. Is the other thing. Brawl's
yeah,
accessories. So that's why
yeah,
it's like a part of me is like I feel like it could have been too hard, but is also true that I think Prime is a bit more complex than the rest. That is definitely where it went. It would have been nice to have something other than the swords as well. But
yeah.
don't get
I
me
do.
wrong, they didn't prioritize it wrong. If you're gonna pick a gun or the swords, you made the right choice.
Yes. And since we're seeing that we're getting Revenge of the Fallen Starscream, um, Riddico with his saw blade, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. We'll get some form of Riddico of this Prime with his blasters.
In fact, I see this pretty likely. I'd
Yeah,
I would love it if he came with one blaster and then like two hooks because the hooks are smaller, so I feel like two hooks
yeah,
could be equal to a sword. But
that's true.
we'll see.
So we only ever saw him using one blaster at a time, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, we never saw him use two at the same time in the movie, other than I think maybe his powered up mode with Jetfire, but
Oh
that's
wait,
different.
no, no. I think he did. I think he did dual wields when he broke into the factory in Revenge of the Fallen. I'm pretty sure he was dual wielding.
You could be right, yeah. But in all honesty, most of the time he
Yeah,
uses one gun, so I feel like that'd be the more appropriate thing to do one gun and two hooks, but we'll see.
yeah.
And then, as you mentioned, the colors do seem a bit off, and it's interesting looking at this toy line that they're approaching it with a screen accurate, like, uh, that is their priority in terms of screen accuracy. Yet, this isn't the only version of a character that seems to be colored wrong in terms of screen accuracy that we've seen announced because as you mentioned that Voyager Starscream for Revenge of the Fallen that is colored not very accurately like it has the tattoos and such to the screen but it's very clear that it is colored to be like the toy which is really weird. Not a bad thing necessarily. In fact, I personally that like hits massive nostalgia for me personally because that toy was one of my favorites. But
Uh,
I'm kind of curious. I have not looked at this at all. If Optimus Prime's coloration lines up with something with a toy or some other version of this version of the character, not necessarily the screen. I'm curious to see if there is a reason his colors seem because they seem off in ways that they shouldn't be, as you mentioned with the grays being darker than they should be and such. Like not even that they aren't metallic. It's not like oh why doesn't he have the silver paint? No, like it's
yeah,
just way darker. If they'd use lighter plastic, it'd look more right.
yeah.
So I'm kind of curious if any of the toys from around then maybe are closer to this deco because I noticed that whenever Revenge of the Fallen Studio series Starscream was shown off, I was like, "That is the toy. That's not his on-screen colors. That is the toy colors." So
Okay.
interesting, just an interesting thing to note.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's basically all my negatives for Prime.
yeah. Do you have any other comments about Prime you haven't touched upon?
None that I basically don't have to do with his placement, so
Okay.
which we'll get to.
Yeah, we will. So let's move on to the next figure in the wave, Starscream, who is labeled number 6 for the studio series. His design comes from the first movie, transforms into an F-22 Raptor, and his accessory is a missile launcher, though it does not launch missiles, just for clarification if that was ever needed. uh, there is a saw blade scene in promo photos, but is not present on the final toy, and we already brought up when we were talking about it before that saw blade will be coming with the Revenge of the Fallen Riddico. This Starscream though comes with a Mission City battle backdrop and transforms in 26 steps.
Yup.
Yeah,
Are we just gonna go into positives first?
yeah. Let's go in positives, just straight off the bat.
So, as mentioned, the transformation is 26 steps, and all I have to say about the transformation is basically, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Uh, which is basically what they decided to do with this and the deluxe Starscream from Dark of the Moon. Because it shares transformation, and it's not a bad thing whatsoever. Because basically, the biggest problem with that figure was it was a deluxe. So they took all the good things and they made a Voyager, which isn't bad at all. So I do like the transformation. It's familiar, but still it works very, very well. Um, the other thing is I do like his size. I think that
Mhm.
he has a bit more size to him than Prime, and I think that that definitely does not negatively impact the toy whatsoever. It only makes him a little more desirable to other people. And then the other thing is I really do like his head sculpt for one. and his weapon. I really just like the way the hand folds away and the weapon stores on. It's not like put in his hand or anything, which is what I'd be worried with. That just sometimes happens where a character's forearm will like basically replace the hand and put out the weapon. But a toy will come with a version of the weapon that kind of tries to cover up the hand but doesn't succeed. This toy does not do that. It actually folds away the hand and you plug the weapon into the forearm, which is something I appreciate because it's not always done. So I
Mhm.
like it a lot when it is done, and this is a prime example of it. So yeah, those are my pluses for him. Oh, and the Raptor mode, it's so sweet. It's
Oh
slick.
yeah, yeah. That was my main positive. Like this looks like Starscream from the movies as best realized as possible in toy form. Um, there's probably like a statue or something that like gets the details down to the nail, but you're never going to recreate that on a transforming action figure. Uh, so this does a great job of doing that while still making it competently able to transform. No 50,000 step transformations, no masterpiece Dinobots here. Uh, but yeah, and then the other main thing was what you also said about it taking from the Dark of the Moon transformation. Again, I never handled that toy as well, but from my understanding, takes from it works perfectly well. And for a first time experience, it is quite a fun transformation to have, to experience and to do. Um, I'll touch on this quickly. Uh, as a negative, this is just a personal taste for me, and I know they needed to do it to get the design right. But I notice I do dislike it when a figure needs to have extra bits to fill gaps on the robot mode. And in Starscream's case, it mainly like has those gaps to fill like the triangle, the bottom sides of his triangle chest, with those all that extra mechanical detail, and they just kind of store under the wings. It's not the most pleasant thing. It's not. It's certainly not the worst kibble on a jet former ever to say that. It's just in my head, it's the whole. Then why do you have that in the design? But I know that the movie design, especially the movie designs, toy designs, don't. They don't. Those guys don't really talk to each other, and the designers have to work off the movie designs as best they can. And it's a compromise you need to get the movie design, but it just make me feel better if toys didn't have to cheat so hard to get the designs to look right. But
Hmm.
again, limitation of the toy, that's what you have to do. And of course, I come from an era from Cybertron where the designs were 100% screen accurate, pretty much.
For better or worse.
Yeah, for better or worse. But I mean, Cybertron did as best as it could, though. Leo Breaker was the one weird exception of that screen accuracy.
Hmm.
But it looked a lot better than the toy, well, the Savage Claw mode more specifically. But it looked a lot better than the actual Savage Claw mode, I will say. Um, Heading off topic, but I do have another positive for it. I also love the articulation of this guy. He's got such weird body shape and weird proportions, but he still has great amounts of articulation. His head can look up, so it looks like he's looking forward when he's flying, which is always a plus when you have a jet former. His arms, though gangly and weird, have great range, and the joints are perfect to get some really nice poses out of him. Legs, unfortunately, are relatively limited, but that's because it has to incorporate the chicken leg design, which, I mean, that's part of the design. It's something you got to deal with, but they do what they can with it, and you could get some nice posing out of the legs as well. It's just chicken legs aren't the greatest things, um, which actually was my other negative. I just realized the chicken legs are awkward, but that's the design, and that's what we're going for here. So I mean, you gotta. Um, but what are your negatives, Eric?
My negatives are I honestly don't have a ton, but I wish the thrusters were in the right place on the back. The only
And
mention I really, the only reason I mention that is because they got Revenge of the Fallen Megatron's back sculpted right, so it had the like his thrusters like basically where his shoulder blades would be. And Starscream doesn't have them on his shoulder blades, but a little bit lower, but on his back, which you do see him use in the movie whenever he's taking out other raptors.
yeah,
So I would have liked it if that was the case, but alas, it was not meant to be.
darn.
Legs are a little awkward, but I can forgive it. And then just this kind of generic, but I mean, silver paint wouldn't hurt, but that's not. Honestly, I don't mind it that much. It's just, it's kind of a stretch because there isn't that much to complain about him for me at least. So. Oh, and it
Mhm.
would have been nice if he had come with the saw since he was shown off with it beforehand. But honestly, like ignoring that fact, I don't mind it
Yeah,
because
I
it's
mean, we didn't see the saw blade in the first
no,
movie.
exactly.
I think.
That's why it's literally the only reason I say it would have been nice is just because it was shown off in the package and everything, like in promotional shots. So it was kind of like teasing us, but it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Though, if it did come with the saw blade, then I could totally say the 77 Camaro B could definitely have come with more accessories than just the ones he used in that body, since we were already talking about Volkswagen B coming with so much stuff
Hmm.
to fill out the box.
Yeah,
But we're complaining about the wrong toys.
exactly.
Actually, we're not complaining about these toys too much. It's mostly Prime's colors are wrong for reasons.
Yeah.
Um, but um, do you have any other comments on Starscream?
I don't think so.
All right, neither do I then. So, like I said, we are talking about the exclusive, formerly Toys R Us exclusive, Thundercracker for Studio Series. He is labeled number 9. And like I said, originally Toys R Us exclusive. He is branded as coming from Dark of the Moon, transforms into a generic fighter jet, comes with 2 rocket clusters as his accessories, as well as the Chicago aerial defensive backdrop, and transforms in 35 steps. So just as many as Prime.
Yeah.
Oh, as well, he is a uh, redeco
Good job. You did it.
with a modified head sculpt from the Nitro Zeus design from toy from the last night. No, Decepticon Nitro. It was just Decepticon Nitro on the toy line.
Yeah, I was gonna say his name was Nitro Zeus in the movie, but in the toy line it's just Nitro.
Yeah.
The non-headmaster headmaster
Yes.
toy,
Yes. It's
which
obviously something got cut somewhere.
which this well, I mean it was that is how it was intended to be. It was just with Cogman. It's just
Yeah.
most people didn't get a Cogman. But anyways, that's a
Yeah.
feature that this version of the toy does carry over, which
It, yeah. Sorry.
I think is a pro because it gives you the option to make it whoever you want in all honesty with Titan Masters and everything.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and it would bother me if you had to remove it for transformation, but you don't. You can keep it there. So that's when I find it acceptable. Like that's okay. If it was mandatory parts for me, I'd be like, nope, that I doesn't like. I would still like the toy, but that would still be a major flaw. But no, if it's a bonus for me since it's optional.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, all I have to say about Thundercracker is he would have won for me if he was the first version of this mold I had gotten. Since he's a repaint that was just put in this line, he's still incredibly good, but I can't give him the rank of number 1 for that reason. That's
Yeah.
basically the only reason. Um, and also his head sculpt is fantastic along with his colors, albeit his colors are also a little bit of my negative, but I think that overall, especially in jet mode and such, I think that those are some major pluses along with his just freaking awesome transformation. So,
Absolutely. Um, quick, going back to that really quick. One thing I do like is that the connection between the head and the body is a lot tighter than Nitro Zeus's. I know for me, when I was transforming, the head would like to pop out sometimes. Felt a little loose, but this one like feels really solid. Like sometimes I can't even tell it comes undone. Which maybe not a great thing if I want to try to do too much. Maybe that means it's a little too tight, but I don't know. It's fine. It seems fine. It seems perfectly fine. No snapping necks on Thundercracker here. But like you said, head sculpt is great. I really like it because it is clearly inspired by the Starscream movie head design, but has its own takes and bits that makes it a lot more unique. Though, golly gee, the eyes on the sides of the head are a tad weird. The extra eyes on the sides of the head are a little creepy and weird, but you know, the Decepticons in the movies have like buggy, monstrous features to them.
Yeah.
So that does also help it fit in the aesthetic with something unique, like a great head sculpt. Colors look great, though definitely the colors look better in person than like photos tend to make it.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, I completely agree like that. Like I remember looking at the photos when like a couple of people were finding their Toys R Us like really early. Like I think they were like March or something.
Mm-hmm.
There was like that one in Oregon or Michigan or somewhere like that, and there was a photo. I was like, "Oh god, that doesn't look good at all." And then I get in here and I was like, "Oh, this is gorgeous. This is quite gorgeous."
Yes, a pleasant surprise. It did not look like it was going to be a pro, then it ended up being a pro.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And another pro. It's great to see this mold again. It's Nitro Zeus is a great mold. And it's nice to have another one in my collection. And I'm able to distinguish it substantially more from the Nitro Zeus mold because of how the wings transform. And I just like leave him in more like a G1 Seeker kind of wing configuration to help distinguish them.
Yeah, that's another pro I forgot, is that you have the option, although not intended because of just the mold wasn't meant for him. It's just a happy accident that you can give him the G1 Seeker wings, which even distinguishes him more from Nitro Zeus, as you said.
Yeah. It's quite good fun. It's just quite good fun. Couple negatives for me. The main negative, and I talked about this in my review on my channel, that both on Thundercracker and on Zeus, or Nitro, I should say, the right leg does not want to tap in correctly for me, because there's like 3 or 4 connections and I can't get them all to work. A couple of people were very kind enough to leave comments on my Thundercracker review talking about fixes, but it's been months and I haven't bothered to try because I got busy with other things and I forgot that's a thing I haven't figured out correctly. I think someone mentioned to me that some of my screws might be a bit tight, so I might want to loosen them to get the connection to work better.
But it still definitely counts as a negative if you have to do that out of box. So
yeah, but not obviously if the fix is simply I have to loosen something that was screwed in a little too tight. Certainly not the worst thing in the world, like Steel Bane, whose joints are way too loose, or something. Oh my
god, the figure sucks. There are not many figures that'll outright just say they suck. That is one that just sucks. And it would have been good if it weren't for that. Or at least not bad.
I personally have a Skulltron that has really not tight, but like good, very solid joints. There's a little bit of wiggle on the one ball joint on the wing, but most of it's pretty solid, so it's fun mold to handle much more than Steel Bane. But we are off topic. If we ever go back in time to look at older waves, we'll talk about that then.
Oh god, I don't know if I even want to.
I don't know either. Well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as the series progresses. But yeah. Anyway, other negative thing. With the wing transformation, when I do transform it as done by the instructions, something always pops off. Mostly it's those like thruster engine bits on those wings that you have to move that like I don't know what I'm doing wrong
Yeah,
or if
you have
I'm
to move it like a very specific way for it not to pop off and need reattached.
yeah. Like again, not worst thing in the world, but it seems like to happen like most, if not every time I do attempt the transformation. So it's just annoying. They have to redo that, but it's a solid connection. You got to get just right. But what are your negatives in regards to Thundercracker there, Eric?
Um, One negative is that it's a stretch because there isn't a lot to talk about for this one either. But I would have liked it if they'd added a Titan Master. Like I understand why they didn't for Nitro Zeus because he was not a headmaster in the movie whatsoever. So like they had that feature. Because in all honesty, if you haven't seen the last night, I don't think you care about the spoiler. But spoiler alert: Nitro Zeus gets his head shot off. So sadly, because he actually was awesome.
Yeah,
But he gets his head shot off, so you can make the argument that it's screen accurate since it isn't a Titan Master. It's literally just head
yeah,
removal. So, and that was basically so it could interact with Cogman. But with Thundercracker, since he's just kind of a concept and he never even was imagined in that body, that would have been a nice thing to add in. I totally understand why they didn't and why they it would have been more difficult for them to do so. But again, it just still would have been a nice touch, and it's not something that would have been not screen accurate since this is the only character we've got in Studio Series so far that hasn't appeared on screen.
yeah.
We'll get more, but not yet.
Not just, but we
Um,
are. We know we are. We know we are.
oh yeah, we've already seen
That
some.
their branding is being in the movie, but nah, we know your game.
Yeah, exactly. But another negative aspect I would say is the fact that this is a Toys R Us exclusive, because that hindered its availability. I mean, if you really wanted the toy, you could get it, but you probably would have to pay a little bit extra if you couldn't find it. So
Mm.
it's not the hardest exclusive to find, but the fact that it was an exclusive to a chain that got shut down, that this is basically the
Right when
last.
it was being
Yes,
released.
it was the last Toys R Us exclusive, and not as in like the last one before they shut down. It was the last one as they were shutting down. So, not good timing. But I mean, if you manage to get your hands on it, that's not the biggest deal. But I feel like that is something that I can count against it, since
Yeah.
that was part of its intended release was as a Toys R Us exclusive. Just went very poorly, which isn't necessarily
Yeah, it's not
Hasbro's fault.
necessarily Thundercracker's fault. It's just definitely something that can negatively impact the experience of
Yes,
Thundercracker.
exactly. But I do think he is worth obtaining. And then also off of that, I think it is a. This is something that I'll carry over with a couple other figures in Studio Series as it goes on. But I wish that this wasn't counted into the numbering system.
Hmm.
It's not the worst thing in the world, but I wish that they would have kept the numbering system to screen only appearances, and then kept their concept, air quotes, characters,
Or they're exclusives
yeah,
at the very
or
least.
exclusive special versions, that type of stuff, outside of the numbering system. Not the biggest deal in the world, but I know that will drive some people nuts, myself included. I mean, I want them anyways, but I do think it'd be better if they were excluded from the numbering system in general. But
Yeah, which would definitely make me feel better, especially now that we know there are 7 Bumblebees in the line out of 25 figures so
yeah,
far, which is not the greatest. But I do have, but the question I was going to ask you, because I'm not as familiar with the Star Wars line, Black Series stuff,
hmm
as I'm concerned you are. Does that line have exclusives count toward the numbering system?
I don't think so, but I could be wrong. I believe that they don't, but that's actually a very good question. So,
Because it's Hasbro, so if they did number the exclusives for that series, it would make sense for them to bring it over to this series.
um,
That's the main reason I ask. If they decide to number this one and not the Star Wars ones, I'll be like, wait, why?
no, I'm believing that it's. I'm like double checking right now, especially because recently. No, I'm pretty certain they do not number them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're wrong, you said pretty certain, so.
Yeah, I'm not saying 100%, but it definitely looks like it. So.
Yeah. So that is a bit weird then.
Mm-hmm.
That they have chosen to number the exclusives. Again, Thundercracker is not a bad one to get counted towards the overall number. It's the Bumblebees.
Yeah, it's yeah. I just checked and I can now confirm totally that that is not numbered. There's like a barcode type thing, like box where the number would be on the side of the box, where for Commander Wolf. So
Okay,
yeah,
so that's really weird then. Oh yeah, and then we'll also have to wonder if the Siege series will have that kind of numbering for its exclusives, if there are exclusives.
I mean, I'm certain there'll be some exclusives. Yeah, I'm curious. If I had to bet on it right now, I would say yes, they will be. Only
Yeah,
because Studio Series is, it'd be very weird if Studio Series was and Siege wasn't, but we'll see.
yeah. Maybe they learned their lesson. I don't know.
And then only other negative aspect, I kind of don't. It works a lot better in person, but I still think a small complaint could be made for the large amount of gray in just the middle of his torso. It's a little weird. Again, I hated it, like despised it in pictures. Getting it in hand, it's not that bad, but I still wouldn't say it's a pro. If you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean, it's just a very minor complaint in comparison to what I thought was going to be a very major complaint. So
Mm-hmm.
there's that. I think that's
Yeah.
about it, though.
Okay, and that's also it for me. So let's go on ahead and talk about our personal rankings for them. Eric, how about you start because I have to talk about everyone else's.
Yeah, not that it'll be very hard, but
No.
my personal ranking is putting Optimus Prime at number 3, Thundercracker at number 2, Starscream at number 1. I don't think Starscream at number 1 surprises anyone whatsoever. I think that's the majority of people all over the internet and also on the show. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
That Starscream is the winner. The only reason that, in all honesty, that like Thundercracker and Starscream are really close to being tied for me. The only reason that Thundercracker is below Starscream and not either tied or beating is because he's a reused mold from before Studio Series. So like, he just if that was the first time I had gotten that mold, he easily beat Starscream.
Yeah.
But again, just the fact that he's a reused mold, not bad. It's just I think I put Starscream above that since it is a brand new mold. And then Prime does come in third, but in all honesty, that's a really good last place figure. That's a
Yes.
very solid last place figure. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Before going to everyone else's, let me clarify. Pretty much everyone was saying that most of these were really close.
Hmm.
And a lot of us were having a hard time deciding. So, like, Prime is also third for me, but like it's really close to the other two overall. Um, yeah, just yeah. But yeah, like I said, Prime is number 3 for me. Thundercracker is number 2, and Starscream is also number 1 for me. So I have the same exact thing as Eric. Um, and pretty much the main reason is Starscream is so great. Thundercracker is cool, but again, saw it before, but still very interesting and does its own things to keep it interesting enough to outrank Prime, who, despite having amazing articulation, his colors are off so much for whatever reason. But for everyone else on the podcast, Christabella ranks hers as Starscream at number 1, Thundercracker at number 2, and Prime at number 3. I don't know why I ran in the other order. So 3 for Prime, 2 for Thundercracker, 1 for Starscream. And she did want me to really specify that Starscream and Thundercracker are basically tied, but I do prevent people having ties when making these numbered listings. So that's why that happened. Miguel has his as well, as Prime is number 3, Thundercracker is second, and Miguel and Starscream is first. Not Miguel is first. I mean, we all know Eric thinks Miguel's number 1, but in Miguel's ranking of the Voyagers, Starscream is number 1. Jared and Zeus do have the same rankings.
Wrong. They're wrong. But they're allowed to be wrong.
They do have different ones from everyone else's. They both list Thundercracker as 3rd, Optimus Prime as 2nd, and Starscream as 1st. But yeah, I mean, I can understand that as well. Depends upon what you like, what you dislike. But it's very interesting how pretty much unanimous the results were for this. With the overall ranking, if you weren't able to figure out from the math, Prime overall from us is listed as 3rd place, Thundercracker 2nd place, and Starscream as the 1st place out of the first wave of Studio Series Voyagers.
But I think we can unanimously recommend all of them. I know we try. I know, like we say, like if you're gonna buy one, buy this one. This is a wave where you'd probably want to go all in general. Even though we do have a number 1,
if you were only able to get one and are able to get all of them equally as available, which is not the case with Thundercracker, unfortunately. Starscream would be the one we recommend, but honestly, if you wanted to go for Prime or Thundercracker, if you had the chance and were only able to get one, I don't think any of us would look at you funny.
No.
Yeah. This overall is a very good wave, and out of the waves I've experienced so far for Studio Series, since we are a little behind on reviewing the Studio Series waves, just a little bit, I think this is the best wave they've put out so far, even whether you count Thundercracker or not as part of it. I will personally say. Do you agree with that thought, Eric?
I don't know. It's definitely one of the... Like, I would at least have it tied with anything. There's nothing I can think of that can definitively beat it, but out of what I've gotten from Wave 2 and then also the Wave 1, I don't think the Wave 1 leaders would tie it. I think Wave 2, Voyagers and Deluxes, both for me personally, could maybe tie it, but I don't know.
Brawl breaks that down for me for the Voyagers, and I have unfortunately not been able to get my hands on the Deluxes yet, so I can't make that judgment, unfortunately.
I don't think it's a stretch to say it's the best wave of the line so far, though. I don't know if I totally think it's the only winner, but yeah.
We don't have too many ways of Studio Series yet, but this is a very, very solid turnout.
Yes.
But yeah, so that is it for the review. If you want to follow social media for the podcast, you can follow us on Twitter at NerdGeekTalk, where we will retweet, where you will be up to date on all the podcasts, including Nerdy Geek Talk reviews and the main podcast of the Nerdy Geek Talk network, Steel City Bots. And you can also listen to this podcast on YouTube, where you should go ahead and subscribe if you are on YouTube, as well as Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, and is there another, Eric?
Did you say, sorry, I was muted. Did you say Google Play?
I did not say Google Play, then Google Play. So Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, as well as YouTube. Those are all the places you can listen to this podcast and all the podcasts on the Nerd Geek Talk network. Eric, where can people find you personally?
You can find me at Eric Crowbar on Twitter. Very active there, so if you ever tweet at me, respond pretty fast. And then also at Optimus Prime is my Instagram, which I do post there occasionally. I mean, I'll see if you comment on stuff there, but I don't go on Instagram nearly as much as I do Twitter, so that's where you can get to me.
And as for me, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, all at Soundjack426. My YouTube channel is a toy review channel with my own podcast about talking about different nerdy things. My Instagram is where photos of my toys go, and my Twitter is where I hang out. So come on by and say hi. And I think that's it from us this week. I did forget to say this at the beginning of the show. Apologies for the delay on getting this podcast out. We did say these are going to be going up every 2 weeks. It has been a while, but that's... It
was Soundjack's fault.
We're going to be judgmental here because I wasn't going to say anything about your editor being out of town.
Well, you didn't record one, so... I mean, in all fairness, you're right. One could not have been put up in the timely fashion, but you didn't record one, so we'll agree it's a mutual fault, but mainly yours.
Yeah, but hey, if I hadn't recorded, it wasn't going to be up until like now anyway.
This is true.
But all of that aside, hopefully this one will get out. Hopefully, we'll get the next one out in 2 weeks' time, talking about the Studio Series Wave 1 Leader Class figures. So keep checking back for that. Keep checking out for the rest of the podcast on the network. And until next time, guys, bye.